All right, everyone, welcome back to the Boys in Motion, your weekly reminder that endurance athletes are absolutely not normal people. And today we're proving it. I'm Brian, I'm here with Andrew and Tyler, and today we're diving in to 10 red flags every endurance athlete shows at least at some point in their career and their training. So, if you're listening now, heads up because you're probably guilty of at least three.
One, two, three, four.
And that's the beauty of it. A couple of these red flags are going to be a little bit silly, but they can also be a real sign that maybe with your training, you're just focusing on the wrong thing. So whether you're overdoing it, under recovering, or just leaning way too hard into the data that your smartwatch is telling you, and when Garmin is telling you you're not productive, but you just got to go off how you feel sometimes.
Oh, and I mean, trust me, I looked at some of these red flags real quick, and I've definitely seen myself in some of these. If you ever found yourself doing a long run when you clearly shouldn't, and you could feel that, or, justifying just one more pair of race shoes as your new season's investment, today's episode is going to hit home.
Awesome. So, where do we start? What do you guys want to fire at first?
Yeah, I mean I think this episode's super timely. Last week we had Tyler's US Thanksgiving roast episode. So I think this one there's going to be a little bit of roasting going around post Thanksgiving week, and the first one is, and I think a lot of our community looking at Strava, we're starting our December challenge. And some of our community will not be getting these during December, but the first red flag is I don't need rest days. I feel fine. So let's talk about that one.
Yeah, 100%. This one definitely, I could say, hits a bit home and also gives me that Strava FOMO when I think that's step one. Like when you go on Strava, I find myself, oh, these people are getting after it. I don't need a rest day. I'm also going to get after it, chase. It's always like, I feel like it's that chasing game. You're chasing that Strava feed and you're like, shoot, all these people scrolling after scrolling have done these activities today. I'm next. I don't need the day off.
Yeah, and that's the problem is one of the things is your Strava feed is just clouded with people who are like overachievers and just doing so much. Shout out Hussein, who we recently interviewed. That guy has me itching to do more, but I know he's just at another level and dedicates so much of his time to just trying to become a fish, for example. And then he's also putting in tons of runs. It's just crazy. So you kind of need to ignore what is happening on Strava and stay in your own lane. You do need rest days. Just because somebody is doing something every day does not mean you need to be doing something every single day, because most people are still taking rest days even if you don't see it online.
I mean, a lot of swimming references there, staying in your own lane, Hussein being a fish. I mean, Hussein's doing so much, we're even getting the one trick pony out in the water. So, I mean, it's given everyone that feeling, like you said, getting that itch to keep going. And I found myself like, when I'm not doing something or need that rest day, which I get a lot of these days, I just literally don't go on Strava, or else I'm going to just have FOMO or be pissed that I'm not going out there.
Yeah, it's true. Like you definitely get the FOMO because it's always fun to exercise. You always feel good after, but you definitely need to let your body recover. And this is also like true for maybe people who are designing a block as you design a block, if you actually refer to like made plans that are off the shelf, they'll have rest days. Sure, maybe some of the top in the sport are like managing to do 7 days a week, but they also have staff that you don't have that are making sure that they're ready to go for every activity. So yeah, definitely worthwhile to take some rest and bring down the volume every once in a while. I know we've talked about it in previous episodes of like the one rest day a week and then actually having deload times during your blocks. So like it's that periodization of taking a little bit of a deload on a week, whether that's volume, intensity, a mix of both, just to let your body kind of tackle that next big piece of work. And it's the same thing like on a daily basis.
Yeah, I think that's some good advice. I think the overtraining syndrome is something that gets a lot of people and leads to injuries just in this past week. The amount of people that have asked me, Andrew, how do I prevent shin splints? I mean, first of all, I'm not a good person to ask because I still get them almost every block. But second of all, it's because you're not taking those easy days. You're going ramping up too fast. You're probably watching too many fitness YouTubers. I know Randa Japan, a big saying of his is train harder, not smarter. But for us mere mortals, sometimes you do need to train smarter, and you can't just go balls to the wall, no rest days. Take those rest days, take that recovery. It's important.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that brings us perfectly into our second red flag. Only train hard, not easy. I think like you were alluding to there, Andrew, it's like us mere mortals do definitely have to take those easier days and those classic zone 2 days, but some of those people are just like, hey, I'm going to do a VO2 max session every single time out there, or every time I go on the bike, it's an interval workout, but cannot be done all the time.
I gotta ask the two of you, basically on the bike right now, which is the majority of my training, I'm doing all zone 2, actually like lower zone 2, pretty much exclusively, except for the race days. Is that kind of the anti red flag here, or does that become its own red flag of only ever doing zone 2 and never spiking it to the high intensity stuff?
Ooh, that's a good question. What do you think, Andrew?
I think that's another red flag, but depending on the time of the year. With the time of the year for you right now, not a red flag. But if you're just always lower zone 2, that's not how you get quick. I'll tell you that. That might be how you go long, but not quick. And there's some people that don't like that very much.
Yeah, that's for sure. So I'm guilty, I guess, right now of the only zone 2. Who are some people that are guilty of the only training hard, never easy that you know? Tyler, I know you probably have a few friends that you're thinking of right now. I see it in your face.
Oh, frig, the tip of my tongue right there. I gotta throw a good man shot at Mustafa. He is crazy man, but what's wild is he goes for distance, speed, and intensity always, all the time. He's just on another level. Like I've seen recently, he's doing marathon paced workouts 20 something weeks out from a marathon. I mean, I can't do those workouts at this time. So good for him. Kudos for him. But that's one guy that I see do a lot of threshold work, which I guess pays off in the long run. But he is something, a different specimen, that's for sure.
Yeah, Mustafa is definitely a good example. I think somebody like Adam as well is somebody who like every time he ran after he finished his marathon, he was basically trying to PR every single time. Now I think running into that race, he was doing a little bit better with it, but now he's just 100% or nothing. And now he's on the IR, the injury reserve list, so not bad.
I mean, I'm a little bit turning into that right now with this off season is the workouts I do are threshold works, and then I just just delete all the zone 2 work. So it's working out for me right now because it's just the fun stuff. But yeah, it's going to bite me pretty hard once I start training again.
And Tyler, I have to ask, what as a Garmin user, what is your Garmin telling you right now as far as your fitness? Is it on the decline or is it on the ups right now?
It says maintaining. My fitness level is staying, but my load is lowering. So that's not bad. It's in yellow. So with those Garmin users, you see the yellow. It's not too bad. It's not in the green, but you're also not unproductive or overtrained. So who knows? Maybe this method works.
Yeah, not bad. The same question to myself. My Koros doesn't see all of the cycling that I do. So it kind of sees that I stopped pretty much cold turkey after the marathon and did like one run a week since then. So it thinks I'm getting super unfit, but little does it know I'm still logging lots of mileage. So, it's not determining my self-worth because I know it doesn't have all the info. So it looks a little delulu. But I know through the ecosystem, so many people are always talking about what their Garmin's saying, and they use that sort of as the benchmark for their own fitness progress. And I think that's another red flag. Don't let your Garmin determine your self-worth. Don't let the data determine exactly where you are. It's not the end of the world if like the data says you're in a slight decline, because a lot of the time it's just kind of tracking metrics month over month, week over week, and doesn't know kind of everything that's going on in your life that might be affecting stuff. Let's just say, for example, you're taking a few days off to really hit a weekend workout really hard. It'll say you're actually getting worse during that time, but that's not the case. You're actually getting better because you're recovering a little bit more.
Yeah, I've seen this too, not just with the smartwatches and the Garmin, but actually one of the main reasons why I stopped doing Strava Premium, it was just chirping me at all times. I was getting record level fitness, let's say, and it was just telling me I was being unfit because it was tracking heart rate. So again, it was just tracking effort level and like, let's say you did a workout at 180 beats per minute average. They treated that as a better workout than like a 3 hour long run. So I was just like, forget this, boycott Strava, and I stopped using the premium version because I wasn't up for that noise.
Now, really cool feature just got added to Strava Premium, which might have you buying that back, which is the cycling power indicator. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but it's quite cool. If you go to like the U button on the bottom right of your Strava app, it says power skills if you're a cyclist. And it gives you information about three different kind of segments or three different types of cycling fitness, which is your sprint power, your attack power, and then your climbing power. And then it builds like a cool circular chart around like those different time frames and your relative power during those, and kind of like plots you on that map to show you where you're strongest, where you're weakest. So an example would be, which I kind of knew this, but it's cool to see the data. I'm really strong in that like attack phase, but a little bit weaker in that like 30 minutes plus phase on the bike because I don't do a ton of like huge work at those lengths. And it's just really, really cool to see that. And then it also tells you if you're semi-pro, elite, or kind of a novice at these various different like time intervals and your relative wattage on your same gender and weight class. So if you do have Strava Premium, check it out. If you don't, it might be worth investing even just for a month just to see that because it's pretty cool and can show you some of your weak spots, some of your strengths as well on the bike because they've always had so much information on running analytics, but this is the first, like, I would say, huge gain for cyclists in terms of the analytics that you get back from Strava.
That's true. That does sound really nice and appealing. I'd have to see the UI on it, but who knows? Maybe when I get back into that cycle grind, we'll see.
Now, moving on to the next, and I know this is one that probably all of us and a bunch of the people in the community are guilty of, and that is chronic gear hoarding. You always are on the hunt for that next piece of gear that will help you level up just a little bit, whether that's a new upgrade for the bike, a new pair of shoes to add to your shoe arsenal, and you're just wanting to add always something new, even though you have a bunch of good gear that's in your closet already.
I'm looking at you because when you go to an Ironman, it seems to be like an all-you-can-eat buffet, but you got to pay for every single thing, but you still treat it as a plateful competition. So I want to hear from you as somebody who might suffer from this chronic gear hoarding condition. What's the story here? Why do you end up having so much gear at the end of each season? So much new gear.
Yeah, I do have this chronic disorder, let's call it. But I mean, I think first it stems from the sport. So and I want to blame it on that, let's say. But I think it's the three sport. You always need newer gadgets. You're working with, instead of pair of running shoes and let's call it calf compression sleeves, you're working with, three sports. So all the bike gear, all the biking stuff. Then when you get bored of all the bike stuff, you go to the running things. And then you can't forget the swimming things. So you always need an upgrade. And there's always that revolving wheel of it could always be better, or you could always find a better deal that you will end up using that device or piece of equipment. So, I mean, like, you could always find that excuse for needing that other gear. And like you said, at the Ironman tents, it's a automatic fold right there. Here's my wallet. I'll take whatever you need. I'm buying everything.
Yeah, and I mean, the gear is nice, of course, but it definitely increases the cost of the sport. And it's also like you just have sometimes too much in the rotation to actually wear it all, and you end up kind of re-wearing the same essential things, and then a lot of the stuff just collects dust. But clothing is one thing. We also have shoes, which I would say is actually nice to have a good inventory of. But even there, you end up kind of choosing your favorites time and time again. So I think like my call out for shoes is like once you find like your top 5 shoes, you don't necessarily need to widen your range so much, but you got to reinvest in the ones you love. What do you think of that, Andrew?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I have a nice rotation, but at this point, having gone through a bunch of shoes, not being very loyal to one brand necessarily, I kind of know which ones I do and don't like, and when I see good deals on them, I think it is still a good idea to kind of hop on the deal next in line for adding to your rotation. But just because it's a good deal and you don't know if it's going to be a great shoe for you, just adding a whole bunch is never a great idea. Because, I mean, I know you, Brian, when you were experimenting a few, you bought this waterproof shoe that you thought was going to be a great winter running shoe, and it ended up being a complete dud. So that can happen once in a while. They're not all going to be the greatest shoe for you.
For sure. And like that is just that specific shoe is still, well, it's not even in my house. It's back at my parents'. It's not coming back because yeah, I just see no value in it. And in hindsight, should have just bought another pair of Kinvaras or Cloudy Clifton 9s. But yeah, I think the whole thing here is like it's definitely critical to have good gear, but you don't need all the gear. What you do need is all of the nutrition, because the more nutrition you have, the more exercise you can do. And so I would stand by the fact that having a lot of carbs, having a lot of electrolytes is a necessary evil. But as we've said previously, especially in the DIY nutrition episode, you don't need to kind of buy all the premium stuff all of the time. Usually with a bag of sugar and some salt, you're good for a training season.
Yeah, I see this so often, the no fuel needed hero. I used to be one myself where I would go no carbs before and during a run. And I think this is also super common in people that are getting into endurance to lose weight. So they think that they shouldn't fuel because that will negate the weight loss that they're getting through the activity, or people that have came from kind of weightlifting backgrounds and doing fasted training. So those are kind of the two big categories where I see this no carb hero. But in reality, you should be pre-carbing for most of your runs, if not all of your runs, especially those shorter runs. So you have some carbs, even if it's in the morning, something quick. And for kind of those runs that are an hour and a half, or activities, sorry, not just runs, an hour and a half or above, you should kind of be targeting that 60 to 90 grams of carbs. Again, personal preferences, so you need to play with that. But the important thing is that you should be taking in carbs during that activity.
For sure. And it's crazy going on some long rides, long runs with people who just like bring no nutrition. So when it like comes to that like chronic gear person, people that have too many clothes, too many shoes, and then not enough fuel, that's a double red flag whammy right there. But I definitely think like you need that nutrition on anything over 90 minutes for sure. And I don't know. I haven't read or seen any science on fasted running, fasted cycling, but my assumption would be that either it's sort of neutral or negative, and it's certainly negative in like a racing scenario or like a high performance scenario. So I would say it's a red flag if you think you don't need nutrition and you're going to become an endurance athlete.
Yeah, and I think just one more thing to add to that point is it's a red flag if you have all the nutrition, and I used to be like this, you have it all and you don't want to use it because it's expensive. Pick and choose, obviously, the ones that you like and what you're going through. But I mean, I've gone through time and time again, like that box of Morton, the gold standard of nutrition, and was like, nope, I'm not going to take one because I'm only going for 90 minutes. And I mean, it's still, I think, necessary, and maybe pick a different type there at that point. But you skipping out on nutrition because you bought it and you don't want to use it is counterintuitive.
That's a really good point. I think we've all been guilty of, hoarding and saving our nutrition a little longer. I even have kept some Morton gels a little past their shelf life. Not that I think like a sugar water gel has a actual shelf life, but it's just funny looking back. It's like almost 2026 now, and I have some that expired in 24 that I'm still not ready to consume. So just keep an eye on the expiry dates, consume that nutrition when you need to. But hey, like with honey or just like sugar and a water, you're pretty good for most of the basic like endurance zone 2 stuff that you're going to do. Plus, I would say that helps your gut train a little bit more.
I just have a freaky story about hoarding nutrition.
Let's
For
hear it.
for for Ironman Maryland, they gave you pre-opened Morton gels, like cracked open so you don't have to play around with them. I get home, a few days later, driving all the way back from the US, and I take it out of my bag. They're still all intact, opened. I just put them on the counter, use them a couple months later for a rainy day. It was real nice.
That that's real nice. They need to just leave them not open so that you can just be hoarding them and not have to worry about anything. The next one, and this one I think is especially relevant with the emergence of so many kind of like influencer pro athletes. I think in the last like 2-3 years, the amount of pro athletes that are coming out on YouTube and being very transparent. Shout out Linus Sanders, who I think is still the GOAT of this category, in my opinion. But that is copying pros without being a pro. And we're talking about trying to copy their training load, doing those mega 140-kilometer weeks, double threshold workouts, doing crazy fueling experiments that you see the pros doing. You just have a tiny glimpse into this, but you are not a pro, don't have the team, and don't have all of the background and training volume that they have in their bodies. So it's not good to just copy paste when the context is not the same.
That's a really good point. And oftentimes, if you're watching a pro on YouTube or a short or whatever it might be, they're usually promoting their highest volume weeks or their like peak stuff that they're doing, their biggest workouts, their hardest workouts, some sort of challenge that's pushing them way beyond their limits. The fact is, a lot of the training that pros are doing is quite boring. Yes, it's fast. Yes, it's a lot, but it's just day in, day out, year over year, stacking these huge blocks to get where they are today. So you just need to set yourself reasonable targets in terms of volume and intensity as well as recovery time for where you are today. Matching what a pro is doing is just going to be a one-way ticket to the injury list.
Yeah, and I think what you said there is like setting your expectations. You could watch all these videos all you want. Like you're saying, Lionel is just an absolute, he throws out a clinic, and you could copy, let's call it, some of his routine strategies or some of his mental, his mental strategies, but trying to copy pace per pace or workout for workout, like you said, recipe for absolute injured list.
Yeah, it's definitely to be avoided, and it's one thing where you just need to have a check-in with yourself. Now, speaking of check-ins with yourself, this brings me to maybe my favorite red flag, which is ignoring every little sore spot until it becomes a full injury that has you sidelined. This is one of the biggest red flags that I think everybody from the top of the sport down to the people running for the first time totally are guilty of at least once until you learn, or many times until you never learn. Because having that excuse of like, oh, it's just a little tight, going for my run will warm up this running injury and then I'll be better after, is not a good way to go about injury prevention and management. So I think ignoring those warning signs when you're getting into the sport or a veteran in the sport is just a huge red flag that I don't know if we're ever going to get rid of.
I was going to say guilty as charged on that one. I don't know about you, Andy, but I'm at least once a year. Oh, it's just a little sore. I'm just going to take it easy and I'll be fine. And then I end up at the physio and then I don't listen to the physio.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there is an athlete on this planet that is not guilty of this one at some point. I think I have, and kind of as you get more into it and get in tune with how your body responds to training, you get quicker at noticing the niggles to try to go see your physio to be like, hey, I'm feeling this, kind of how can I adapt? What can I add to my routine? But sometimes when you're feeling it, it is already too late, and adding it will just add more stress. So this is a tricky one, and yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow when you might need to think, maybe I need to pull back or stop training, which is absolute worst case scenario for us endurance athletes.
Yeah, that's totally the thing, right? Like a lot of the time you are walking the tightrope of injury versus volume, but like if you never adjust that volume and intensity, you're only, making that tight line a little more taut, and it's going to snap at a certain point. And we see it happening in the community, and it's such a letdown, right? Like I'm speaking to athletes who, and if you're one of these people who's like, dealing and managing with it like an injury, if it becomes too much, it can sideline you for weeks and or months. Taking a little bit of time to reset, re-strengthen, rehab, you're going to be able to like push yourself for more time and get back to kind of a healthy state. So I would just like double down on this red flag as something that is serious, because who knows, it could stop your whole career in endurance sports because you just continue to ignore the pain. And yeah, I just think this is one of those things that you either learn it or you're going to learn it the hard way at a certain point.
Yeah, for sure. And then I think like one more thing just to add there too is like once you start feeling better, I'm literally dealing with this right now. My hips feeling better, no longer going to physio. I just stopped doing the exercise. I think you should keep strengthening your issue, keep going on those mobility sessions, keep having those strengthening sessions, and just so you stay out of that, injury prone area, and you just and you're getting better, and you could get back to it, and then also healthier and stronger.
Yeah, I agree. Anything else you guys have?
This one kind of runs into the one we were talking about because it's still like training through issues, but this one is more life chaos. So like, you're sick, you're going to train through it. Bad idea. I think it could get you even more in the dumps and feeling worse. It could affect your work. Also, I find like recently, I think we've all gone through it year over year, is sometimes work gets stressful and you're trying to train through work stresses, staying late to work, and then trying to get your run in or cycle before or after. Sometimes that just adds to the stress, and sometimes you just have to prioritize based on the season too.
For sure. And we're kind of in that, or we were in that lull. I think the best lull of the year is sort of after that big fall race. You get to sort of take some time off and reinvest in life. This is the time where, you can start some other personal projects that require a ton of time. You can dive into work. You can get a part-time job. You can do whatever it might be. But once that training comes back, it starts to feel a little chaotic because you're juggling yet one other thing. And I know both of you are sort of coming to that point where you're starting to come back to some mileage. Andrew, I saw you posting your first run in a few weeks. Is that true?
That's not quite true.
Okay. Well, sorry.
The first no niggle run.
The first no
where
niggle run.
I'm like, I can go right back into it. Yeah.
Okay, so the green flag has been waved in this this sea of red flags, which is good. But yeah, sort of like being able to balance life and training is one of those things that becomes a skill. But it is nice when you have that like lull in training and you can do other things and chase other goals.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, it's this post fall race. I feel like is always a great time to kind of reflect and kind of say, in this case, I had an injury. I know some other people in the community have had injuries. So it's kind of trying to get in that small work to get back into it so that you can jump back into training and be like healthy and in a good spot, which is nice to have that kind of grace to be able to do that. But watching that episode with you guys interviewing Hussein, and I saw the Strava activity that morning, and Hussein made some comment of, oh, I only got 3-4 hours of sleep, and I had to get the activity in before the podcast. So you see people on Strava, it is tempting to just try to squeeze it all in, but yeah, sometimes that can not be the best as far as if you're thinking long term and the health of kind of like your body and absorbing the training you're trying to do.
Yeah.
But some people can just do it all. So
It's true, but I like that idea of like it's your ability to consume volume is like a sponge. You're like constantly squeezing and then letting it kind of rest, and then you're ready to absorb some more. But if you just squeeze too much, you're not going to be able to get any water back in, and it's really tough to always be sort of like doing everything at 100%. And when training needs to take a back seat, it's important to have that flexibility and not, derail yourself mentally because you're trying to do it all. Like, training is important, but it's not everything. But sometimes it can be your number one priority, and that's also okay. But other parts of your life might suffer because of that.
Yeah, you got to throw out the sponge and get a new one. Get refresh and get ready to go for the new year.
That new scrub daddy out of the closet. Get it going.
Oh yeah, exact. Fresh too. Smells good.
Yeah. So this next one is a red flag that I loved to see on the list, which is the long run ego pacer, which is basically that person who is supposed to be going out for that nice zone 2, but they start feeling good. They start having those thoughts where they say, this should be easy, but I feel so good that I want to go fast. And then they end up PRing or going for huge segments or whatever it might be. And they just totally, throw caution to the wind and over push on a long run. And that ends up kind of hurting the rest of your week. Yeah, increased risk of injury, but we've touched on that. We won't talk about that. But it just it sabotages your potential performance because, yeah, you just don't know how to stick to a cautious plan of actually doing your zone 2 work.
Now, this one might impact your race performance. And yeah, racing is important. But what I think why this is really a red flag is for the Strava investigators calling you out for potentially having a regression run. That classic go out too hard at the beginning and then fall apart and have the downward slope in your Strava graph. And that is a red flag, let me tell you. That's not a good look on Strava.
Yeah, I mean, if you're doing it for the pace and the likes, you're doing it for the wrong reason. And I think just that consistency and let's call it, maybe discipline to stick to the plan would be a good word for it. Make sure you stay in your lane and you go hard on your hard planned workouts instead of just, long run, I feel good. I'm going to start cooking this one.
Yeah, and then the other piece to this is the sneaky paused run. So you're sprinting on your long run, but you end up chunking it into so many blocks because you're pausing your watch just to recover and bring that heart rate down again. And yeah, it'll show that, your moving average is super fast. But if you take into that full activity, the biscuits and tea you had with grandma at her place, you might see that, you're running a 7-minute kilometer, whereas you were trying to fool everybody on Strava into thinking you were running 4:30s all day.
Perfect example of that too is your bachelor half marathon. It was a speedy half, but it took us almost 5 hours to do.
Well, that's exactly it. It was the fastest of halves and it was the slowest of halves at the same time. I've never had a faster, slow half.
Yeah, when we were running real quick, but when we were stopped for real long. So that was real nice. I think this one is really, I think a lot of people fall into not having a goal on their long run. The goal is just the distance, but I think the long run's purpose is one, the distance, but then also what type of long run. And I think that's what a lot of people forget. And they just kind of bucket it all into this one, just kind of trying to push at that kind of zone 3. But I think it's important to have different types of long run. There's the distance, but then the effort. So whether that's like a steezy effort where it's like a upper zone 2, or if you're going for like a longer race, half marathon, marathon, then you need to be doing that very specific work in that long run, because that's going to simulate what you're going to be feeling during your actual race.
That's a really good insight. Thank you. So I know we have 10 here that are written out, and we do have this extra one, number 10, but I had a few in the vault that I'd like to share with you, and maybe you can give me your immediate feedback on this. So my number one kind of bonus one here is calling it a fun run with friends or whatever, and then you are checking your watch all the time, pushing the pace every so often. Like, you claim that the run doesn't really matter and you're just there for the social time, but you're trying to get that pace under 5 minutes a kilometer or over 32K an hour on the bike, and you're willing to put everybody else in the grave to get that done, and drop the group that just wants to chat.
This is a good one. I've been a part of these in the grave and also part of these as being the one pushing. So I know exactly how it feels on both ends of the stick. And yeah, that does ring a bell, and I do like this red flag.
I've definitely seen this quite a bit with the Niagara bike group, not the run, but I've been on a good handful of rides that were claimed Zone 2 rides. And in my mind, Zone 2 rides do not include punchy, spiky sprints. But, I mean, everyone's definition of a Zone 2 ride is different, so I have to respect that.
Well, that's exactly it. And I'm definitely guilty of this one, especially on the bike. I just love pushing the pace. And when there's other people who are watt daddies, we're going to get after it.
I think the best definition of this on the bike, I have a good definition on the run and a good definition on the bike. The bike was day 2 of BIM ride. Pain train was, oh, it's okay, guys. We have day 1 in the legs. We're going to take this up to the first stop nice and easy. And yeah, it was probably about 2 hours or an hour and a half of pure pain and sheer agony. It was really nice.
Yeah. So I have one more, and then maybe you guys have some good ideas. But one red flag that I've seen coming out of like people who are just beginning the sport is the kind of person who will go out and buy a super shoe as their second shoe ever. They'll go and drop, the $300, $400, $500 on the best shoe on the market for racing when, they are training at slow speeds, and they'll be racing at moderately slow speeds because they don't quite have the fitness to match all of the gear. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not the boss of everybody, and if you want to buy the nice thing, you can, but you're not really getting the incremental gains on that latest carbon plated technology at 6.5 minutes a K.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with this. I feel like you should have to, earn your stripes a little bit with the carbon plates. You got to get in maybe a few seasons, a few blocks. I don't know what that hard cutoff is necessarily, but I do see a lot of people that are like, they do one race and then they're like, carbon plate, drop in $350. And I know when we were at Toronto Waterfront, as we were marching to the front of the corrals, the amount of super shoes I saw in those other corrals was out of this world. So I think a lot of people are guilty of this one.
That's for sure. Buy your Nike stock now because people are still getting those top of the line shoes. That's for sure. Yeah, I think this goes the same for bikes. And Tyler, sorry, I'll let you go, but this hot take I think might be more serious for the cyclists in the room who are going out buying the top of the line Di2 carbon bike while they're only riding like 1,000K a year. Like, it's just absurd. Like, again, similar to Andrew, who's the running connoisseur, he says you got to earn your stripes. I think it's even more on the cycling side of you got to earn your stripes for the bike, because if you show up at a group ride with a down payment of a bike, I'm expecting 300 watt FTP, and if it's not, I'm not taking you that seriously.
Agreed. I was literally going to say this applies for bikes as well. So you said it right out of my mouth. Yeah, 100%. I think it goes with bikes. I'm just thinking too, first thing comes to mind is those memes that you see, the you know what I'm talking about, the 5K memes where it's like, this is the fastest 5K and this is what he's wearing. It's just like random New Balance shoes,
Yeah.
3-inch cut shorts, and a pack of cigarettes. And then some of the slowest 5Ks are like the fastest glasses you could think of, the designer hat, the Lululemon shorts, and those vapor flies, or those alpha flies when you're running a 30-minute 5K. I mean, that just doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, I love those memes. They're so good, and I think they're very relevant to this.
Another thing too that I've seen, just to add to this, is high rocks athletes are starting to get into the carbon plated shoe because of some influencers are wearing, the endorphin elites or the alpha flies. So you're really just doing those 1K reps when you're supposed to be resting with the speedy shoe. So you're just very fast when you're doing those wall balls. You know what I mean?
That's just crazy. Like, people need to understand that these famous influencers are all getting paid to wear this. And under optimal circumstances, they probably wouldn't be wearing this exact gear because, they're doing it for the paycheck. And the fact is that, like, high cushion carbon plated shoe that's meant for Kipchoge to run sub 2 is not going to help you that much while you're trying to squat doing wall balls and burpees. Like, they're very different sports. Like, even like sitting on a rowing machine and erging with a huge, 2-inch cushion under your feet is just not optimal. Like, the erg isn't built for that. So you kind of need like a do everything shoe, not a high performance carbon running race shoe.
Yeah, just another one for the memes. I think that one was funny.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm interested to see. I know there's potential high rocks in your future, and I'm interested to see what shoes you decide to, and if you fall into this red flag for race day.
Yeah, fast forward 5 months, I'm buying alpha flies for a high rocks competition. Yeah, imagine that. That'd be illegal, straight to jail.
And I mean, you spent all your budget on the alpha flies, so that's why they wear no shirts, right? Is because no more budget left, so no shirt.
No, exactly. If I didn't wear a shirt, I'd get kicked out of that place. So I gotta wear a shirt. I gotta keep budget for the shirt.
That's nice. The budget for the shirt just it goes full circle to the top of the episode talking about all your Iron Man swag. So I gotta ask, off the top of your head, do you guys have any red flags that you might be guilty of or that you've seen in the community recently?
I think one, and this I think is relevant with my most recent racing block, where I was not having a very good race, and that is during races starting to have serious negotiations with your pace and trying to, tell yourself, all right, I can slow down up to this point because, I'm not having that good of a day. And you just kind of like in your head, you're just starting to negotiate. If I slow down to this, I can still make this time. I remember at past 30K, I was still, if I do this pace, because I crossed at 128, I can still get a sub 3. But from my very, very personal experience, as soon as you start doing those negotiations of slowing down, it's just a snowball. You're just going to slow down more and more and more and start feeling even worse. So I think you just need to just start ignoring the watch at that point and just go as hard as you can. Have you guys ever been negotiating and playing those games?
I was going to say that's very accurate. And it's that bargaining, right? You start bargaining. Oh, what if the opposite way? We always talk about chunking things up and making it more digestible, but you're right. It also goes the other way. It's like literally my last marathon as well. I'm like, okay, next aid station, I'm going to walk. I could walk for 10 meters and then I'll be fine. Only 10 meters. And then you start walking and you're like, wait, this feels really good. You just keep walking and keep walking. And then you see others as well. And it just, like you said, a snowball.
Yeah, and it's just like a very mentally tough spot to get into is when you start negotiating. I don't know how to fix this. I've definitely been guilty of it in certain races of like just trying to get to a certain threshold that I would be happy with, but knowing I'm going to be running way slower than that to like hit that. And sometimes it goes well and you still hit that, but it doesn't necessarily feel like a victory because the process of closing out that race is a negative one. The only thing that I can suggest for people who have like a chronic issue with this, me having been one of those people, is to just practice in your workouts, not letting that kind of stuff enter your mind. It's the only way that you might tackle it when you're exhausted at the end of a race, is that you have enough of a habit of not getting into that zone. So an example would be on all my VO2 max work that I did through the last block, and a lot of the threshold work, not all of it, but I really tried to make that a focal point of like not checking the watch, not just like analyzing pace to kind of forecast when it's over or how slow I can get to kind of still hit the metric I'm looking for. It was just like push and be happy with the result because you made it the best, session possible.
Yeah, agreed. And something that came to mind too for my red flag is we did a whole episode on red flags and we haven't called anybody out. So I'm going to call someone out for this red flag, and it's Mr. Kyle, and it is signing up for multiple distances or multiple races without previously doing any type of that activity. I'm telling you, that is a red flag. Just the multi sign up king of yes, let's do this race. It is amazing because he goes for the vibes. It's the good times, but I mean, it's pretty spooky, the sign up game that he's been playing.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I think this is maybe just a more general red flag, is like signing up for too much. Like I think there is an issue in the community where people think like they need a race in their calendar like twice a month.
Every,
It's
every
or
week.
like every week. Like it's just crazy. There's some people that I see that are like racing constantly, which is great. If you have all the money and you don't have like the structure of like a proper build cycle to a peak event, but it's just wild to see some people who are just like racing across many disciplines so many weeks in a row. It's crazy.
Yeah, what comes to mind too is a few of those coffee trotters out there in Welland. They're a different breed. They have a race every friggin' weekend.
It's true, but a lot of them are just pushing the pace. So obviously it works. You see some of the time improvements that they've had, and if you race a lot, you get good at racing, and they're good at racing.
Can't argue with that. That's yeah, real nice. I mean, yeah, I need to get a few more on the calendar so I stop regressing because that's the pattern I've been finding myself in.
And that's the thing. Like all of these, if you go to the other extreme, it's also a red flag. I would say another red flag is if you don't already know, at least one thing that you're targeting for 2026, it's tough to have the motivation, and that's a red flag as well. It's like nothing to train for. What are you even doing? Then you're not actually putting in any focused effort, and you're probably not improving that much. You might just be maintaining or even regressing.
Oh, I'm full regress mode, potato mode. And in 14 days, I'll be regretting every single one of those days that I've taken off, let's just say.
Fair enough. Fair enough. What is in 14 days? Is that your ultra date? It's planned?
That's the date. Yeah, we planned it with the crew, with the Ottawa crew. We have a BIM event. If you're in Ottawa, join that BIM event. We're going to be out there most of the day. We're treating it as a adventure, Mustafa likes to call it, because I was getting pretty stressed out about it, but we're going to treat it literally one step at a time, 1 meter of elevation at a time. We don't know how the conditions are going to be out there. It's starting to get pretty cold here in Ottawa. We hit -16 today, so it's getting nice and chilly. So a full day out there in the snow and the ice, let's just say it's going to be a party.
Yeah, that's really spooky. So good on you for setting that as your challenge. I am flying out to Ottawa. Like, I guess I'll be in Ottawa when this episode gets released. And I looked at the temperature beforehand and I was spooked. I had shorts in my hand and I was ready to go run. But no, it's going to be like -10 at OCRC tomorrow.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to get on that run. Yeah, let's just say bring your full tights for sure.
There we go. Looking forward to it. All right, team, that wraps up our list of the top red flags. We've definitely all fallen for a number of these, and people in the community, they're supporting us with their red flags. If you've done some nodding along with this episode, well, then you're in good company because all of these were things that we saw in ourselves as well.
And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure you follow us on Instagram, join our Strava Club Boys in Motion, and share this with someone in your training group that needs to hear it. And we'd love for you to drop in a comment what your biggest endurance red flag is.
Yes, that would be fun to hear some of those nice red flags. We definitely haven't thought of all of them. And just that quick reminder, we're not pros or medical pros or coaches. We're just crazies. And we're here to share what we've learned through our experiences and some mistakes that we have also done. Always talk to a qualified expert, and you should listen to them before trying something crazy.
That's it. So keep training smart or stupid. Just train, but make sure you listen to your body and always keep the boys in motion.